This is the story of Susan Newnham's murder that made headlines throughout the country. An excerpt from the Sacramento Daily Union of September 1855 reads as follows. We have made use of every exertion to obtain full and complete particulars from the most reliable sources concerning the horrible and astonishing tragedy near Ringgold on Friday morning, August 10th. In the forenoon of Friday last, Jeremiah V. Crane, armed with a Colt's revolver and a Bowie knife, proceeded to the residence of Mr. Benjamin Newnham, 1/2 mile above Ringgold. Stopping at the gate opening into the yard around the house, he sent for Mr. Newnham's daughter, Miss Susan M. Newnham, to come out and see him. She did so, whereupon Crane asked her if she intended to go and live with him, and she replied, "No, I will die first." He responded, "Then die you must." He seized hold of her, and a scuffle ensued. Here is Susan's story of the events leading to this horrible tragedy.
I'm so pleased to see you all here today. Now I'm certain my dear mother and father, who guided me through my younger and innocent years, would have me introduce myself to you in a proper and ladylike manner. So of course, I will honor their guidance and tell you my name is Susan Mildred Newnham. My family called me Vashti, an endearment that means beautiful, and comes from the biblical story in the book of Esther about the Persian queen Vashti, a woman of great beauty and strength who defied the dominance of men. Though my family preferred to call me by that name, it was my preference to be called by my given name, Susan. I began my life 18 years ago, the second of 8 children born to Benjamin Brady Newnham and Elizabeth Payne Newnham in the fair state of Kentucky. My family, consisting of my parents, my older sister Sarah, and my 3 brothers, made the arduous trip from Kentucky to the area of Ringgold, just southeast of the town of Placerville, off what is now Big Cut and Quarry Roads. My 2 youngest siblings were born here in Ringgold. I should aspire to tell you more details of my circumstance, but I am all but certain you come here today, to this resting place of departed souls, to hear the story of how my life ended, at such a tender age, at the blood-stained hands of my instructor, Mr. Jeremiah V. Crane. I am aware he has set forth a long-winded litany of falsehoods explaining his horrific, heinous behavior towards my person, so it is my obligation to tell the truthful version of the terrible events that led to my brutal death, and reclaim my reputation as a virtuous and God-fearing woman. So that you can fully understand the circumstance in which I found myself, I will describe for your eagerly waiting ears how my involvement with Mr. Crane came to be. My family took boarders into our home, and as Mr. Crane had been unsuccessfully seeking to find his fortune in the goldfields, he found amenable accommodations within our home, in exchange for teaching my brothers and me. Being a polished and erudite gentleman, as was seldom encountered in Ringgold, my father requested Mr. Crane's participation in educating my 3 brothers and myself. He consented to that request and assembled a small schooling shed built off the end of our home, with its common wall adjoining my bedroom. I enjoyed learning and had thus far had infrequent opportunities to engage in formal schooling, so I was much taken with Mr. Crane from the beginning of his residence with our family, and he noticed how much I loved to read, so I had high expectations of the marvelous and worldly knowledge he could impart to me by means of his instruction. However, as it came to pass, his scholarly instruction was directed solely at my brothers. Despite my being present every evening in the schoolroom, my lessons consisted merely of refinements of my penmanship skills. Though Mr. Crane may not have given much of his time to instructing me, it became soon evident he fancied my company in the room for more than practicing my penmanship. I was the frequent recipient of flattering compliments concerning my comportment and my appearance. You can imagine how his pleasing observations buoyed my spirits and that he was most charming. His compliments soon became so frequent as to be expected by me, and with that I fell into playful behaviors with him as well. Quickly, we established habits of trading endearments and exchanging small moments of innocent, gentle touch. It was ever so thrilling to wake each morning, anticipating what happy and affectionate exchanges would ensue upon our next meeting. Soon enough, however, Mr. Crane became more ardent in his overtures to me. The lovely small compliments turned to declarations of undying love. I must confess, those assertions thrilled my romantic inclination, and we wrote declarations of commitment to each other, and Mr. Crane saw this as our marital commitment. When Mr. Crane commenced to speak of undying devotion and loyalty and his desire to be together into eternity, I began to feel increasingly uncomfortable with his unceasing intensity. I became disturbed at his resolve as I learned that he had a wife and 4 children in Kentucky. He assured me that no obstacle existed as his wife had already remarried, freeing him to do likewise. Slowly, I began to have feelings of unease, born of learning that he had no proof of a divorce. As my reservations about Mr. Crane's character increased, his ardency grew into what I can only call ferocity. In our private conversations, he would speak of achieving a state of everlasting bliss and infinite love through eternity. If his request for my hand in marriage was to be refused by my father, which indeed it was, then we would create our own eternal bond in death. This gave me pause, even as I had read enticing romantic tales of lovers' pacts. Truly, it disturbed me to contemplate, as I realized his intention was quite sincere. Ending my own existence became a horrifying thought. In his ever-increasing avowal of love, he became certain that I loved him in equal measure. Yet, in a moment of anger, he demanded that I return his written declaration of love. I did so, and he tore it to pieces. I asked that he return mine, and he refused. This, of course, presented quite a dilemma for me. Once I realized the inevitable conflict that was forthcoming, I could see my own complicity in creating this vexing situation. This, of course, was unacceptable to Mr. Crane. One afternoon, under the green, spreading canopy of trees in front of our home, he asked to see me. Despite my hesitancy and unease, I went out to meet him, whereupon he asked if I intended to leave and live with him as his wife. No, I replied, I will die first. He seized hold of me, whereupon we had a scuffle, and he pulled out a knife. He declared that if I did not consent to be spiritually wed to him, then he would take matters into his own trembling hands to ensure we would be loving partners for all eternity. I freed myself from his grasp and turned to run as he drew his pistol and fired at me. That shot was not fatal, and I quickly hid his hand away, causing the gun to go off into the air to no effect. I ran, and Mr. Crane took aim and fired a 3rd time as I reached the threshold of my home. Gentle listener, you might assume I met my end in that terrible moment, but I did not. Hearing the shots, my mother ran into the room to find Mr. Crane standing over me. She came at him with a stick, but he put his gun to her chest, and she turned and ran to our neighbor, Mr. Stainer, for help. They returned to find Mr. Crane cradling my head as I lay bleeding. He told them he needed to leave and would return. A doctor was summoned, and Mr. Crane did not return. As the other men of Ringgold set out to find him, I was taken to my bed, where I suffered for 5 days until at last, and at the age of 18, death took away my pain. Perhaps you have already heard how the saga of my tragic story concluded. If not, I will relate how this desperate story ended. Despite Mr. Crane's frequent avowals to bring about our mutual death so as to join us both in heavenly eternal bliss, in the end he proved to be no more than a coward, willing to rob me of my own life to satisfy his selfish desires. Fittingly, as justice would have it, once captured, the men of Ringgold did press for immediate retribution, until Sheriff Buell intervened and insisted on due process. Mr. Crane was tried and found guilty of murder. He professed to all who would listen to attempt to join me in death by means of pistol, by knife, and by rope. But somehow, his goal of ending his life through his own action never came to pass, leading me to beg the question of his true sincerity to join me to eternal life. He did request to be buried with me in Ringgold, but my father refused, and though there are rumors to the contrary, to this day my resting place remains a mystery. Thus, the dramas of Mr. Jeremiah Vardaman Crane were brought to an end in October of 1855. I can assure you that neither his poetic ramblings nor passionate pronouncements of regret will give him access to my spirit in the hereafter. I thank you for listening to my story, and may you all enjoy this beautiful day.